Welcome to the best show about relationships. Become a free member on my website to get my free 1 hour video, free relationship advice, and so much more. Subscribe and share this video, and let us begin, shall we? All right, let's see what we have for our first comment here. People with unhealed trauma shouldn't be dating. That is the most selfish thing you can do, to start something with someone, fall for each other, start building a future with one another, only to say you don't feel like you can be in a relationship anymore while you deal with your issues. Don't start something you're not ready for. Stop ruining people who only had intentions to love you. Yeah, this is very well stated here. The trauma bonds that people establish with other people who are equally traumatized one way or another. It could be an abusive family history, a failed relationship with plenty of abuse there, verbal and physical, one or the other or both. Yes, trauma really ruins the experience for both people involved, trying to become solid partners in a solid relationship. Lots of couples usually fail because of this. One person just has way too many mental and emotional issues, emotional baggage, mental issues to work through. It's very common, unfortunately. For instance, people who support spanking children, which is physical violence, assaulting kids, innocent kids that you chose to have. Once you lay your hands on your children, I don't care if you're spanking them on the behind, that creates future problems for them to have to deal with on their own later on in life. And unfortunately, the sickest outcome there is that they'll support striking their children as a form of corporal punishment, quote unquote, which is pretty much physically abusing your own children. So hurt people hurt people. And the sickest part is that people who have been hurt in the past this way through physical violence in their family, camouflaged as spanking as a convenient excuse to strike your child with your hands or using an object, now they're going to fully support abusing their own children. Luckily, in my case, I refuse to do such a sick thing. Many religious people strike their own children, being complete hypocrites. They don't practice what they preach. They'll say love God and love Allah, whatever it is, but they'll gladly strike their spouse or their children to quote unquote discipline them. Well, that's what all this is. It's a culmination ultimately of a bunch of spanked children, neglected children, children who grew up in abusive households. So now in their adult years and elder years even, for a lot of people, they have to get over those traumas. And for a lot of times, you can't get over it. You have to live with it. So it's an extreme burden for your partner to have to deal with that garbage. Because it is garbage. Garbage that your parents, your family, or previous partners created for you. They created the storm. Now you have to weather that storm. And it's, that's the effects of abuse, even verbal abuse. Now you have to deal with it for the rest of your life, potentially. Luckily for somebody like myself who experienced physical and verbal abuse in my family household, I've already overcome such obstacles. I'm no longer traumatized by such things because I've learned to be stronger, wiser, more intelligent, how to protect myself now and forever. I'm a strong individual. Unfortunately, not everybody is strong like me. And I fully understand that. I can see easily how somebody can fall and stay on the ground and never get up. They'll drown themselves in alcohol, substance abuse. They'll think less of themselves. They'll struggle to try to love their partner. And their partners will struggle to love them because they see their pain, the pain that's being taken out on their partner. It's just sad. But I refuse to let those who abused me in the past get away with damaging my life furthermore, which is why I chose to protect myself. And you should too. Not everybody has post-traumatic stress disorder. It's not a disorder unless you're just unable to function every day. If everybody has, one way or another, almost everybody, I'd say, you're mighty lucky if you don't, some level of post-traumatic stress. So traumatic is usually puts you in a dream state. Comes from the German word Traum, to dream. Without going any further into that, let's go ahead and take a little bit closer look at this comment, because it pretty much says it all. Don't start something you're not ready for. Yes, so traumatized people, should they not try to pursue a partner? Well, not really, because your partner could be the key to healing up those traumas. But it's not their obligation. You have to realize that. They're not obligated to do so. Just like the police aren't obligated to protect you, right? It's a similar parallel here. Nobody's necessarily obligated. They can help you, but ultimately you have to be the one to cure yourself. They could help you a lot if they care that much for you, if they love you that much. But it is an extreme burden to put on their shoulders. But hey, love is supposed to move mountains. So if they say yes to helping you out, and they feel confident that they can help you overcome those past traumas so that you can move onward with your life into the unlimited world of happiness. That's the pursuit of happiness. You have to deal with these past traumas. And if you need psychological help from a psychologist, go for it. Just be careful who you listen to, because unfortunately many psychologists will have you just repeat your past traumas and get you nowhere fast. You know, round 1, round 2, lap 2, you're just in Groundhog Day with these therapists and psychologists. So yes, they could help you, but again, ultimately you have to help yourself. Alright, so the most selfish thing you can do, well, kind of, sort of. This person's being a little bit harsh. Not necessarily selfish, it's just pretty much thoughtless, careless. You could say selfish, but that's not always the case. People just want to move on, and sometimes they move on too soon. They don't take enough time to heal themselves before moving on to a serious, committed relationship. They're not ready yet. So, yeah, so start building a future with one another. That's the idea. A fresh, future together, carte blanche, a fresh start. Because your partner, or your new partner, if that's the case, if it was a past failed relationship where you experienced the traumas, it's not their fault. It's not your new partner's fault, okay? So you gotta be careful not to be tempted to use them as your punching bag. Let's go ahead and move on, shall we? Because that's just the introduction here. Alright, second comment on probably not the same topic. Let's see. Men can't talk about their negative dating experiences online without being belittled. Alright, so a different topic here. But women out here got a full diary for male hatred and get praised for it. Really, though? Is that really the case? Do they really get praised for it? I mean, there's always going to be toxic females out there and toxic males. Unworthy of being called real men and women. They're always going to whine and complain online. It's convenient. It's easy. They're just dishing out their offline frustrations. It's just as simple as that. So let's see here. Men can talk about their negative dating experiences. In fact, they always do it every single day, 24/7. You can find plenty of posts. You're completely allowed to. And no, they don't always get belittled. And think about it this way. A lot of women get belittled online, and a lot of men get belittled online. I see it all the time. It's always 50-50. Of course, many times, because the women tend to speak out more about their problems, because there's a lot of coward men out there who don't reach out for help. And yes, they are cowardly, because you have to be willing to talk about your problems. If you can't solve your problems on your own, you need to seek help from anybody. Friends, family, co-workers, strangers even. Of course, don't tell them everything. But you never know if you don't try to talk to somebody. Be careful who you trust. I get it. But if you don't open up, you can't allow solutions to come in. Unless you yourself create those solutions. That's always possible. But it's a long road. You know, it's not necessarily a shortcut, but sometimes you can talk about things safely with other people. You can be just as vague as possible, as anonymous as possible, and people will respect that. Not everybody's out to get you. You can't really follow this comment here and say, you know, men can't talk about anything because they're always belittled. That's kind of a loser's attitude. You know, that's just fear. You're being ruled by fear. You got to snap out of it. All right, you got to be a real man. Snap out of that. That's not what a real man says and does, okay? You can't be whining online saying, well, I want to talk about it, just they don't let me, and I don't feel like... Are you a man or not? And even women, speak up. My goodness gracious. Women are just as scared too. Just because there's a lot of loud women out there who talk about their problems, there's way too many immature ones in that mix. You know, I'd say yes, women are more prone, the good ones, to talk about their negative experiences compared to shy men. There's a lot of shy men out there. And there's a lot of stubborn men and stubborn women who, they're like, well, I'm not going to talk about it to anybody, and I'm just going to stay in my problem forever. Okay, that's pretty much most likely what's going to happen. You'll remain stagnant like quicksand until it solidifies. Your life isn't going anywhere for the better. Humans are created and meant to work with each other to solve problems. If you don't believe that, then you're going to live a very lonely life filled with even more problems. All right, last comment of the show, shall we? Being 35 and people asking you why you still aren't married, like it's a problem, is the real issue. No, it's not a problem. You don't have to be married at 35. Nobody's pushing you to do so. What you mean? Look at y'all. Marriage isn't the goal. Actually, it is the goal. Peace and fulfillment is. No, you're talking about loneliness. That's okay for 1 or 2 years. Maybe 3 to 5 if you really need it, that much time alone. But you need to get back in there. Because if you insist on being naive to say there isn't any good partner out there for me, that's your fault. Now you're a loser. You're choosing to fulfill that role. Loser. The letters can't be any bolder. Loser. You're spelling it out for yourself. All right? Don't do that. It's okay to take your peace and not fulfillment. You can take your peace. We've talked about this so many times. Take time off, but that doesn't equate fulfillment. It does not. And I refuse to settle. Nobody's asking you to settle. I always encourage people to never settle because that's guessing. You're playing the guessing game. I don't know. Let me just take the next person who takes a ticket in line. You know, so many people fail in life that way when it comes to relationships. They just take whoever says yes, the next person. It's just such a gamble. Might as well go to the slot machine and pull the lever. That's pretty much what you're doing. Well, it's more like Russian roulette, but let's go ahead and finish this off. If you have to even ask, keep stepping. All right, so you're pretty much wasting your time by saying this. You're just complaining online. Like, this isn't presenting a problem that you'd like to solve. This is just whining. And you're supposed to be 35 years old? You got to start acting like it. You know, like, people are going to say everything online. Everything. Often it's a circus. You know, that's what it comes down to in many of these social media platforms. You'll always have your peanut gallery. Forget about them. You can waste your whole life on the negative people. Your entire life. And then it makes you a whiner and a complainer. It turns you into something that you really shouldn't be. So with that said, always think positive. You have to change for the better. Change that mentality of yours, that mindset. You got to change that attitude. That's a mental and emotional combination, your attitude. Because this ain't it, Chief, as they say. This isn't it. This is just complaining. You got to man up and woman up. To each their own, but It's strength over weakness. This whole life is a one big experience of survival of the fittest. Mentally and emotionally fit and physically fit. All right. That pretty much covers it. So with that said, if you made it this far, it's time to become a free member on my website. You'll get free relationship advice and so much more, such as my free 1-hour video, which is incredible. Also, drop a comment with the topic that you would like me to cover in a future stream. Much love, everybody.